Please begin the posting of the official party. Captain Williams, arriving. Naval Air Forces, arriving. Pacific Fleet, arriving. Navy, arriving. Member, United States Congress, arriving. Side boys, post. Parade the colors.
Forward. March.
Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem.
Oh, see, can you see by the dawn's early light, we're so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Lead Army.
Retire the colors.
Shoulder, mark. Left, face. Forward, march.
Military guests, please remove your covers and remain standing while Chaplain Bowden delivers the invocation.
Let us pray. The heavens tell of your glory as you breathed into the expanse, separating air and sea, and calling naval aviators and sailors of all rates and ranks to fill these majestic spaces. We humbly invite your presence with us as we recognize the extraordinary heroism of Captain Royce Williams and acknowledge the family and friends that have encouraged him throughout his life. We hear your words from the psalmist, "Where can I go from your spirit? If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me." We give thanks for the millions of Americans who, like Royce, did not falter at the call of duty, and for the steady hand of your presence in calm, combat, or injury. We remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice and the families who remain faithful and steadfast throughout, especially those serving in the Korean War, dubbed by some the Forgotten War. It is not forgotten, and we are here to honor a man who stayed the course amidst unreasonable odds and rose to the occasion as he fought for freedom and liberty. We ask your blessing upon all of our servicemen and women at home and abroad as they stand the watch this day. May they and we always be moved to action by heroes like Captain Royce Williams, proven extraordinary in the heat of combat and faithful to service for many years following into retirement and today. And now bless us in this time of recognition as we look to you, our compass and guide. Amen.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please recover and be seated. Congressman Issa, California 48th District, Secretary of the Navy, the Honorable Carlos Del Toro, Admiral Samuel Picaro, Commander, U.S. Pacific Fleet. Our hosts, Vice Admiral Kenny Weitzel, Commander, Naval Air Forces, and Commander Jim Kidrick, U.S. Navy retired, CEO, Air and Space Museum. Captain Royce Williams and family. Flag and general officers, active and retired, commanding officers, city and state officials, local and international community leaders, veterans from all our wars, friends of the Navy, members of our U.S. Armed Forces, and distinguished guests. Welcome to the San Diego Air and Space Museum and this momentous occasion to honor and recognize a true hero, Captain Royce Williams, for his efforts 60 years ago. We would like to extend a special thank you to the Air and Space Museum for hosting this event, our facilities team for their coordination, and the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing Band, Honor Guard, and our vocalist, AE3 Montero Hernandez, for her rendition of the national anthem. It is now my great pleasure to introduce the President and CEO of the Air and Space Museum, Commander Jim Kidrick, United States Navy, retired.
Wow, what a special day. On behalf of our board, staff, and volunteers, welcome to the San Diego Air and Space Museum. We're proud to partner with our Navy to ensure it's a never-to-forget memory and honoring. On the lighter side, before we view a special video which sets the stage for today, a couple of comments for our special guest, Captain E. Royce Williams, who flew perhaps the greatest single combat mission ever. Royce, the other day when I was reviewing some of the video we used for today, my wife Andy was watching and quickly declared loudly, "Now that's a hero." And all of a sudden, I'm not quite the hero I once was. For that matter, all of my Top Gun and squadron buddies are out also. Royce, you win. Speaking for all, we surrender to you. Also, your combat experience brings to mind a classic but very real one versus many air-to-air combat environment. However, to be engaged for some 35 minutes, where every time you saw an airplane near you as your head swiveled side to side, front to back, you knew really only one thing about that airplane. That pilot was trying to shoot you down. In a 100% guns fight, well done. Third, I've been thinking about your call sign, Royce, because they really didn't use call signs back then, but it's difficult to nail it. We call this the Balboa Park pause, by the way. But it's difficult to nail it. Hard to interject a degree of sarcasm and humor for someone so accomplished. So perhaps just accept, for the time being, MiG Killer. We'll work on finalizing something later. Thanks again today to our staff, Chaser's leadership at Tailhook, Mark Viz Vaccaro for providing video clips for us to edit, Denise and her protocol team. Where's Denise? She's just, that whole team is just magnificent. Brian Ferguson, Tom Cruise, you'll see him in the video, the Blue Angels and others, but especially the Air Boss's leadership, ensuring our naval aviation enterprise is the best ever. Please join me watching a short video to begin today's journey, and thank you for coming today.
About 100 miles from Vladivostok, Russia, Soviet Union. And it wasn't supposed to happen. I flew an early mission against a target at the Yalu River, which separates North Korea and Soviet Union. Well, when I landed, they said, take a quick lunch and come back, you got the next mission. It was a combat air patrol. I'm flying with 3 other guys that I know, but I've never flown with before. So we got our briefing. We took off and joined up under the clouds and then climbed as a formation to on top of the clouds at 12,000 feet. Well, while we were in the clouds, we received information from our combat information center that there were inbound bogies, meaning unknown aircraft. So, popping on top, I looked to the north and I could see 7 contrails all in a wing formation. And I charged my guns, checked everything, ready to fight, and raring to go. Fired the test ground. And as the airplanes came over us, I identified them as MiG-15s. As they did that, they reverse, and I thought probably going back to land. But they were probably at least 50,000 feet, an area that my airplane couldn't reach. And when I got to 26,000 feet, I was still tracking them, but they were very speedy, and they were probably 70 miles ahead of me. And at that point, the formation split, with 4 airplanes turning off to the right and 3 to the left. And what it turned out to be, they were going to bracket me. I reported to Combat Information Center, CIC, that I'd lost contact with these airplanes. And they said so had they, as they became a smaller radar target. Anyway, I was directed to reverse, come back and establish a barricade between the last sighting of the airplanes and the test marks. Well, in that turn, 4 of them came in at my 10 o'clock position, 12 o'clock here and 10 o'clock over here. And they were all firing. And I turned hard into them as they swept by, and I got within range and got my sights on the number 4 guy. Fired a short blast and he went down. At that point, my wingman left me to track this airplane, and 3 others came in from the other side, so I'm now a little set for them. Well, the remaining 3 that first attacked me pulled up abruptly to probably 2,000 feet above me, and I was still sort of tracking them. At that point, they turned around, and I was going to try and shoot the guy that just lost his wingman. But he was in the sun, and I saw the other 2, included their original flight leader, had turned around and were coming in, and they were shooting already. I thought a little out of range, but I changed and aimed at the lead guy, and when I thought I was in range, I fired again a short burst, and he stopped shooting, and he turned left, and no longer attacking me, but his wingman was, so I switched on him, and we exchanged fire, and he would fire just a short burst when he quit firing, and he just kept coming and slid underneath me while I continued to shoot at him. It's my assumption that he was dead. There was no maneuvering or anything. Well, we're down to 5, and instead of being in a formation, they're operating singly, taking a turn. And I was flying at a level altitude, 26,000 feet, full power. It was a matter of evasion, of one airplane at a time, and watching them at my tail, hoped to shoot me down. And as he would go by, they would normally climb again at a fantastic rate of climb. And my attention, since he was not able to follow that act, was to see who's next and go through the same thing time after time. Well, one of them came by at a rather flat instead of climbing, and I was able to turn on him and shoot at a very close range, and parts of his airplane were coming off and everything, and I had to maneuver violently to keep from running into him. Well, more of the same, getting dull. They're just repeating the same things, same type of attack, and go whirl away above it. Another one was, for me, a possible, I thought, and I tracked him and I fired as he was starting to go out of range, but he started smoking and slowing down, and I ran out of ammunition, and lo and behold, I saw another MiG right coming in on me. I made a hard turn to get away from him, but he hit me with a 37 millimeter cannon right in the a button on the wing and fuselage. And the damage was that when it exploded, the accessory section of the engine shooting away the cable from control of the rudder and knocking out all the hydraulics. It exploded in the accessory section. So I was damaged goods, and the airplane was harder to fly, being out of ammunition. I probably almost out of fuel. I didn't bother checking the fuel. They had nothing I was going to do about it. So I dove for the clouds that were covering the task force. And my elevator was working perfectly. And so I would, 2 hands on the stick, abruptly pull up. And once I got to the level I wanted, and the guy started to get his gun sight on me again, and I would push over and dive. And I made a series of these things until I got into the clouds. Well, once in there, I lost sight of the guy behind me, who was in perfect range, probably 400 feet. And I started count my blessings and see what I had to worry about, whether I was going to have to jump, which would have been fatal because the winter conditions, survival, although I had a survival suit on, I'd probably last less than 20 minutes. So I knew the bottoms of the clouds. So I just descended carefully until I was in the clear. And I was talking to the CIC that I'm inbound and damaged. And they said they're getting the flight deck ready because they were about to launch another attack on the targets ashore. Fragments from the warhead of the 37mm cannon. There were 263. So I passed that information to the ship, and when I got the signal Charlie that's cleared to land, I was in a position behind the ship and pointed at it, but not without being at quite an angle to my landing platform effective. So I notified him again, I'm coming in hot, and the LSO says to the commanding officer of the ship, he's coming in hot, can you kick it up a bit? Well, there was a lot of wind from the big storm we were in, and besides that, the ship can add another 30 knots, and he says, bring him in any speed he wants. And the next thing I'm saying, I can't line up. And the LSO said, well, I'll cut you for an early wire. But the width of the ship was not landing space, and I knew I'd be going over the side. But the captain, being a knowledgeable naval aviator, turned the ship and lined it up with me, and I made a good landing.
Ship to do the job. They must find this speck lost somewhere on the sea. When they find it, they have to land on its pitching deck. Where do we get such men?
Launch jet.
Your grit and bravery, they're simply astounding. You are a true American hero, and I offer you my most sincere thanks and congratulations to you, sir.
Greetings, Captain members. My name is Commander Royce. I'm the flight leader and commanding officer of the United States Navy Flight Demonstration Squadron, better known as the Blue Angels. I'm joined today by several of our team members, and we wanted to take a moment to thank you for your extensive and exceptional service to this country and send you a quick message on a very important day in your life and your career to thank you for the work you've done, the sacrifices you've made for this country that have allowed all of us to do this job and be part of this career and be a part of this country that we love so much. Thank you.
Am I good to go? Jim, you did it again. I think I gave you about 15 minutes to make that video absolutely phenomenal. You and your team here, absolutely phenomenal. Even though you brought Chaser in on it, it's turned out phenomenal. Nice work, Chaser. I appreciate that. Hey, before we start, obviously, Royce, you and I talked a little bit this morning. Don Shelton, Admiral Don Shelton, would be very proud. Last night, the clouds opened up. Rain came pouring down. And Admiral Shelton passed away last year. The big supporter to get to look to make sure you were properly recognized for this. And then we woke up this morning to sunshine, to VMC. Admiral Shelton, a little vain. He had to have a good look today on this ceremony. So I know that he's looking down today, very proud of what is finally coming due. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an awesome day, a great video and tribute to a true hero, not only of the United States Navy, but of our great nation. I'd like to welcome our distinguished participants today. Congressman Darrell Issa, California 48th District, Secretary of the Navy, the Honorable Carlos Del Toro, Admiral Sam, Admiral Tim Keating, PACOM Commander, Admiral Bill and Sherry Gortney, NORAD, Northcom, and most importantly, Captain Royce Williams. Royce, it's a great honor and privilege to be a part of this ceremony today. Those of us that serve today stand on the shoulders of giants that came before us. And Royce, you are certainly one of those giants. It is great to recognize you today. I have the distinct honor of introducing another great American, an Army veteran, a representative in Washington, a longtime friend of Royce Williams, and a driving force behind pushing for legislation that ensured Royce would receive the recognition he rightfully deserves for his incredible acts of bravery and heroism during the Korean War, a conflict that has been vastly underappreciated in the history of our military due to the sensitivity of the classification of so many events that occurred that day. Without any further ado, please welcome the Congressman from the Golden State's 48th District, the gentleman from California, Darrell Issa.
Thank you, Admiral. When you talk about legislation didn't make this happen. The only credit I'll give is that the 100+ flag officers and aviators who made this point, including the late Admiral, made me aware of it. Now, for all of you who have been at the VFW, you know that you go to the VFW and hear amazing stories, and some are true. When I first heard this amazing story, the Admiral was like pushing on it and pushing on it. Captain Williams was saying nothing, kind of all shucks about the whole thing. To get him to tell the story, you have to ask and ask again. And thank goodness we got to see it on that video, because it takes about 4 asks to get the story at least. But it is fitting today that we do have the Secretary of the Navy here, because it was perhaps a little bit of credit for getting his attention, but it was his attention that made this happen today. And I want to thank him personally, because I don't think he gets thanked enough for the things he does that he doesn't have to do. When you're Secretary of the Navy, you have to worry about everything that's going wrong and answer for everything that goes wrong and that which might go wrong. So amidst that, the Secretary took a day of his life, came out, met with Captain Royce Williams personally, heard his story, and reversed 70 years of denial of the fairness of this award and made that decision on behalf of the American people. So that's why we're here. But before you hear from the Secretary, and I understand that we're going to have to coax Captain Williams into saying a little something, but I hope we will, because he said, no, I've got nothing to say today. I don't think that's right. I do want to mention, by the way, for the one soul that said beat Army, a lot of courage in this crowd to say that. Corporal Royce Williams is here with us today. Yes, the Army made him what he was. With a little help from aviation training. But I want to close. I sure wish that was from Miramar and not from Denver. I want to close by saying, I opened by saying this is altogether fitting. It is altogether fitting that although it took 70 years and a couple of months, that it's a bookend of America's fight for freedom. 70 plus years ago, Russians, then the Soviet Union, on behalf of North Korea, their communist ally, set off to attack and to change the conviction and the belief by us that we could maintain freedom for the people of Korea, and particularly South Korea. 70 years ago, because of Royce Williams, they failed. 70 years later, Russians have attacked Ukraine, and America, as we speak, in its own way, is making sure that Russia fails again. So, Captain, I know you don't always hear, so I'm going to talk real loud. Thank you for beginning a fight that never ends, the fight for freedom. God bless.
Thank you, Congressman Isa. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Samuel Paparo, Commander, Pacific Fleet.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear teammates, patriots, today's a very historic day as we honor a true American hero. Each of us that wears the wings of gold, when we pin them on, we state the Navy Flyer's creed. When the going is fast and rough, I will not falter. I will be uncompromising in every blow I strike, and I will be humble in victory. I am a United States Navy Flyer. I have dedicated myself to my country. This is our duty. This is our creed. These are our values in U.S. naval aviation. And Royce Williams, sir, when every morning as reveille is blown, as we heave to and trice up our bunks, we pray that we can meet the example of your heroism and your service. It's a tremendous honor for each and every one of us to be a part of today's ceremony, honoring one of the greatest feats in aviation combat history. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my very great honor to introduce the 78th Secretary of the Navy, himself a career sailor, an entrepreneur, a husband, a father, and a patriot. It's my very great honor to introduce the Honorable Carlos Del Toro, Secretary of the Navy.
Good
afternoon, San Diego. It is wonderful to be back here, and I promise you that I will not be long-winded because I know that some of you actually think it's cold here today. It is indeed a pleasure to be back to San Diego, and I say back home because my wife and I served here actually when I was the executive officer of a cruiser. There was many a weekend actually where my wife came alone to Balboa Park and even this museum with my 3 children while I served out to sea. So it's simply wonderful to be out here. But before I begin my foreign remarks, I got to tell you, Captain Williams, I've been coming to San Diego for 18 months since I've been Secretary of the Navy. And I got to tell you, I've never seen a crowd like this coming for any of my other speeches here. I think they must be here for some very special occasion. Thank you, Admiral Paparo, for those kind words, warm introduction, and for your extraordinary leadership of our Pacific Fleet. And thank you, Congressman Issa, for all the dedication that you've displayed throughout the many months and years that you've been writing letters and calling and supporting for this very important occasion. Thank you for your leadership as well. Commander Kidrick and all of our distinguished guests, thank you for being here at this San Diego Air and Space Museum. And what a great museum it is to honor a very special moment for a true American hero. Before I continue, I'd like to just ask that you'd indulge me for just one more moment. It's my understanding, actually, that there might be one, if not more, World War II veterans here today. And I'd like to ask that you please stand and be recognized as well, too. I'd also like to ask all our Korean War veterans to please stand and be recognized, or put up your hand if you're already standing.
I'm not going to let him sit down to your Vietnam next?
No, we're going to stop there. With all due respect to our Vietnam and every other conflict. As we've heard today, Royce Williams was a lieutenant in the United States Navy. When he took the lead of an incredibly critical mission during the Korean War, resulting in the protection of Task Force 77 from enemy attack on May 7, 1953. His actions almost 70 years ago earned him recognition. He was awarded the Silver Star Medal. However, as Secretary of the Navy, I have the authority to consider proposals to upgrade awards. Among the many cases that I have reviewed, and believe me, I've reviewed many, Captain Williams's case stood out above all others. It was very clear to me that his actions were truly extraordinary and more closely aligned with the criteria describing a higher medal. That's why a little over a month ago, I had the privilege of visiting Captain Williams in Escondido. And sir, what a tremendous honor it was for me to do that. And to be able to call you and tell you in person that after all these years, your courageous actions on that day would finally get the full recognition that they are due. And now, I am so pleased to be back here again to formally bestow upon you the long overdue Navy Cross. Before I do, let me take another brief moment to remind us all that freedom does not come cheap. It comes through the sacrifice of all those who have and continue to serve in today's military. Your actions that day kept you free. They kept your shipmates free in Task Force 77. And indeed, they kept all of us free. Just as it was then, it is incumbent upon all of us today to continue that example and journey so that totalitarians throughout the world clearly understand that America and our allies will never back down in defending freedom around the world. I pray that your example continues to shine brightly as an inspiration to all our currently serving men and women in uniform, as well as the thousands
those who we need to continue joining our ranks today so that we never forget that freedom must always be defended. As a refugee myself, born in a communist country, I simply cannot thank you enough on behalf of your Navy family and all Americans. Now, Captain Williams, will you front and center, please?
Guests, please rise for the official presentation of the Navy Cross. Attention to award. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Navy Cross to Lieutenant E. Royce Williams, United States Navy, for service set forth in the following citation. For extraordinary heroism in aerial flight on 18 November 1952, while leading a division of 3 jet fighter planes attached to Fighter Squadron 781, embarked on the USS Oriskany. While flying a combat control mission over Task Force 77 in the northeastern coastal waters of enemy-held North Korea, Lieutenant Williams demonstrated outstanding courage by placing himself and his accompanying planes between the task force and an attacking group of 7 enemy MiG-15 aircraft, thereby protecting the task force from enemy attack. Having repelled the initial attack of enemy aircraft, he skillfully maneuvered his plane into position where he was able to make 2 firing passes on one of the enemy fighters. After the second pass, the enemy aircraft spiraled into the sea. On a subsequent run, he inflicted heavy damage to another enemy aircraft, which was seen to smoke badly and retire immediately from action. When his own plane was severely damaged by a direct hit from one enemy MiG-15 aircraft, he maneuvered to escape, yet continued directing the engagement until he reached cloud cover, in which he evaded the enemy and then landed his nearly uncontrollable aircraft on the aircraft carrier. The skill and daring exhibited by Lieutenant Williams and his complete disregard for his own personal safety materially aided the accomplishment of the task force mission. By his courageous actions, bold initiative, and complete dedication to duty, Lieutenant Williams reflected great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. For the President, signed Carlos Del Toro, Secretary of the Navy.
Do I need to give you an order, Captain?
No. If I'm not showing it, I am absolutely free. I have not expected this. I was told to hush, and I did until I learned that it was unclassified. I never expected any recognition. When the secretary came and sat down next to me, hallelujah, I was through. I'm just good. And the German, I'm so pleased to see. I see a lot of familiar faces out there, and for the rest of you as well for just showing up, makes me honored. Thank you all very, very much.
Official party, the men and women of the United Armed Forces, Congressman Issa, the Honorable Del Toro, Admiral Paparo, Vice Admiral Weitzel, Commander Kedrick, U.S. Navy retired, and the Air and Space Museum, thank you for your courageous actions and selfless service to our country. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the playing of Anchors Aweigh and the Marines Hymn. afternoon, fly Navy.
Oh my God.